Hi, this is Adam Elio Berkowitz from Israel 365 News, coming to you from the Golan. I have a very special guest today, a man I really I love what he does, and he's an amazing man. Rabbi Michael Freund. We pray to bring the ingathering of the exiles 3 times a day, and he is actually doing it. He is physically bringing lost tribes back to Israel, which is a remarkable thing. He runs an organization called Shavei Israel. He's and I just want to point out he's this is the prophecy from Deuteronomy 30 verse 4, which says, "Even if your outcasts are at the ends of the world, from there the Lord your God will gather you. From there he will fetch you." And Michael Freund, Rabbi Freund, is actually bringing Jews from the end of the world. Most notably, he's bringing the tribe of Menashe, literally the tribe of Menashe, back to Israel, a group of people who know where they're from. Rabbi Freund, I really can't thank you enough for bringing the Geula. That's something you're actually doing. So if you could tell me a little bit about, you just told me that 2 weeks ago you brought 252 B'nai Menashe, people from the tribe of Menashe, back to Israel, and that's still ongoing. If you could tell me about the people, a little bit about their history, how we know that they're Menashe, I'd love to hear about that.
Sure. With your permission, let me just begin with a slight correction. Of course, it is the Lord who is bringing the people back. It is the Lord who is gathering in the exiles. Isaiah 56, verse 8, God himself says that he is the one who gathers in the lost tribes of Israel and brings them back. Myself and others involved in this kind of work are simply doing our part as human beings to partner with God in this endeavor, but he's the one who makes it happen. With regard to the B'nai Menashe, which is Hebrew for the sons of Manasseh, this is an incredible story of truly biblical significance. The B'nai Menashe are descendants of one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel, the tribe of Manasseh, the son of the biblical Joseph. The 10 tribes were exiled from the land of Israel 2,700 years ago by the Assyrian Empire, which was the superpower of the day. The Assyrians invaded the land of Israel. They captured the northern kingdom of the 10 tribes and cast them off into exile. Most people don't realize this, but most Jews nowadays, such as yourself and myself and others, we are primarily descendants of the tribe of Judah, which was exiled later by the Babylonians in 586, and then subsequently by the Romans, who scattered us to the four corners of the earth. And we are referred to as Jews, among other reasons, because we are descendants of Judah. But Menashe are not descendants of Judah. They are descendants of Israel, one of the 10 lost tribes. And despite wandering for so long in exile, they never forgot who they were or where they came from, or where they one day dreamed of returning, which was to the land of Israel.
Rabbi Freund, I'm going to put up some slides as we speak. If you want to address or describe what we're looking at, then that would be great. So the first slide.
If I can, I want to remind people we're broadcasting live, so if you have any questions, you can post them on the live feed. And we really would appreciate it if you found this interesting, if you could share it with your friends. I'm sure they would find it interesting as well.
So what is this?
The B'nai Menashe, throughout their exile, kept the Sabbath, they kept kosher, they celebrated the festivals, they observed the laws of family purity. In effect, they lived a biblical form of Judaism. Not exactly precisely the way that contemporary Orthodox Judaism is practiced, but that makes sense because they were cut off for 2,700 years. They continued to perform the sacrificial rites well into the 20th century. Interestingly, they were not familiar with the festivals of Purim or Hanukkah, both of which commemorate events that occurred after the Bnei Menashe and their ancestors had been exiled from the land centuries beforehand. So it's a remarkable story of faith and determination, of clinging to the dream of Zion, despite being cut off from the rest of the people of Israel. And that's what makes the beginning of their return, their aliyah, so very, very special. Because if you go to the Hebrew prophets, pick a prophet, Jeremiah, Zechariah, Amos, open any one of them, you will see that the prophets say over and over again that Judah and Israel will be brought back. Judah and Israel will be reunited here again in the land. There is Jeremiah chapter 3, verse 18. God says, in those days, the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel. Judah and Israel coming back. The prophet Ezekiel in chapter 36 or 37, God tells him to take the two branches, one representing Judah, the other representing Joseph, the 10 lost tribes, and to bring them together in his hands, because then the Lord says he will forge them into one. The return of Jews over the past 2 centuries to the land of Israel has been the beginning of the fulfillment of the ingathering of the exiles. But now we are witnessing the next stage in the redemptive process. Now, with the return of Menashe, one of the tribes of Israel, we are seeing those prophecies of old leap off the page and come to life before our eyes.
You're muted. There we go.
Right. I always thought that I'm so so awed by what you're saying. I always thought that there's one kind of ingathering of the exiles, which is like people who know they're Jewish, who are recognized as Jewish. They get a visa, they get an air passport, they get on the plane, and they come to Israel. But there are other kinds of ingathering that are really beyond nature. They're supernatural. They're miracles. And this is what we're looking here is people who they knew they were Jewish, but they were separated from the Jewish people. And really, you're correct. It needs God to do something like that, to bring back Israel in a miraculous manner.
Absolutely. Just 2 weeks ago, as I think you mentioned, we brought 252 Bnei Menashe on Aliyah from northeastern India, where they currently reside. And today, as we speak, there are another 5 Bnei Menashe in transit, making their way here to Israel. They're due to land here in about 2 hours. And all this is happening despite the lockdown, despite the global pandemic. It just goes to show that nothing, not even the coronavirus, can stand in the way of God's divine plan. Nothing can stand in the way of the ingathering of the exiles.
How did they end up in that corner of India?
So according to their tradition, their ancestors were exiled by the Assyrians in an eastward direction. They wandered for several centuries before they settled in what is now something in the area of China, where they lived for a certain period of time before they were persecuted on religious grounds and then forced to flee southwards and westwards until they settled in what is now northeastern India. It's a very remote part of the world, and they've lived there for several centuries. The first Westerners to discover them were British military officers and missionaries a little over a century ago, who were astonished to discover this population that believed in one God, whom they referred to by the Hebrew word Yah, who practiced biblical Judaism, and who spoke of a place called Zion, where their ancestors had come from and where they believed they would one day return. And over the past 2 decades, we have been blessed, thank God, to help more than 4,000 Bnei Menashe to make Aliyah. There are still another 6,500 in India who are waiting to come. All of them wish to do so. And at Shavei Israel, the organization I founded almost 20 years ago, we are determined to do everything we can to help every last member of the Bnei Menashe who wants to make Aliyah to do so.
Can you pinpoint on this map that we're showing which area we're talking about?
I'm sorry, I have trouble hearing your audio.
I was asking whether you can pinpoint on this map that I'm showing now which area of India we're talking about.
They live in the northeastern part of India. If you look on the map in front of you, you will see on the far right corner is the country of Myanmar or Burma. And then there is Bangladesh. And right in between the two of them, you will see Mizoram and Manipur are the two states where the bulk of the Bnei Menashe currently live. There are smaller communities in some of the neighboring states, such as Assam and Nagaland. But for the most part, most of the community, most of the 6,500 is concentrated in Manipur and in Mizoram.
And I'm wondering, they they don't look like what most people classically think as Jewish. So I'm just wondering, how are they received in Israel, and what are you doing for them in Israel?
Well, I think they could possibly say the same thing about us.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You know, a Jew is not determined by the shape of his eyes or the color of his skin. It's something deeper. It's something in the heart and in the soul. And perhaps for those of us who grew up in the West, we're used to seeing Jews of a particular shade or color. But anyone who walks the streets of Jerusalem knows that Jews come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. And in that sense, the Bnei Menashe have been welcomed with open arms here in Israel, because just about everyone in Israel is either themselves an immigrant or a child or grandchild or great-grandchild of immigrants. So there is this strong sense of solidarity and of embracing newcomers, particularly when they come here fired by religious passion and Zionist ambition to contribute to the country and to build the state.
Are they already fluent in the Hebrew language when they come, or do they have to go through some sort of ulpan in order to learn the language? And the same thing about their religious status. Do they have to go through some sort of conversion process, or are they accepted as is?
So back in 2005, the Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel at the time recognized the Bnei Menashe as Shavei Israel, or the seed or descendants of Israel, in a philosophical sense. But in a practical sense, he ruled that because they were cut off from the rest of the people of Israel for 2,700 years, on an individual basis, each one needed to go through a conversion process. And that, in fact, is what happens. And it removes any doubt regarding their status, and it facilitates their absorption into Israeli society. Shavei Israel runs 2 educational centers in northeastern India for the Bnei Menashe, where we teach them basic Hebrew and help to prepare them for life in the Jewish state. But once they arrive here, they do go to Ulpan to really pick up the language.
I'm not sure if this is really real. I'm just astounded that they held onto their Jewish identity, basically isolated from all the other Jews in the world. Do you have a take on that? How they managed to remain Jewish?
I think that we can attribute it to, in one sense, as I said before, their spirit, their faith, their determination. I think in a mystical sense, we can say that there is a Jewish spark. In Yiddish, it's called the Pinta L'Yid, the Jewish spark inside a person. And that spark can never be extinguished. It may lie dormant for centuries or even millennia, But when the time comes and that spark ignites, nothing can stand in its way. And I think that the Bnei Menashe, down through the centuries, were faithful to the Lord, and God is now rewarding their fidelity by bringing them home.
Can you give us a scoop as to the other tribes that you're looking for now? Can you tell us what other tribes are being searched for and found now besides the Menashe tribe?
Sure. We currently know the whereabouts of 4 out of the 12 tribes of Israel. First, there are the Jews, such as ourselves, who, for the most part, we assume are descendants of the tribe of Judah, though we don't have family trees going back that far to document.
Or Levites.
Well, that's the second one. The second one would be from the tribe of Levi, which are the Kohanim, the Jewish priests, and the Levites, the descendants of Levites who served in the Holy Temple. Both the Kohanim, the priests, and the Levites are descendants of the tribe of Levi, so that's 2. The Ethiopian Jewish community has a tradition that they are from the tribe of Dan. That makes 3. And now Manasseh has been revealed to us, so that is 4 out of the 12 tribes. There are other communities out there who claim Israelite ancestry. 2 of the more well-known ones are the Pashtuns or the Pathans of Afghanistan and Pakistan, about whom there is a lot of very interesting historical evidence from the medieval period to suggest that some of their sub-tribes are in fact descendants of Israel. Another very well-known example are the Lemba of South Africa and Zimbabwe, where geneticists actually found that the priestly family of the Lemba share the same rare, unique genetic mutation that exists among Jewish priests, among Jewish Kohanim, which has come to be known as the Kohen gene, which buttresses their claim that their ancestors were once part of the people of Israel. So this search is ongoing, and we believe that at the end of days, in the Messianic era, all of the people of Israel, meaning not just the Jews, but all the tribes of Israel, will return here. In Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 28, God says explicitly, "V'chinastim al admatam, v'lo otir od mehem sham." God says, I will not leave a single one behind in exile. Not one will be left behind. And at the end of the book of Ezekiel, the land of Israel is apportioned once again at the end of days to all the tribes. Obviously, to receive their tribal patrimony again, they need to be here to get it back. So it is traditional Jewish belief that all the tribes will come home one day.
And I live in the Golan, which is the tribe of Menashe. So
Right.
you might be bringing my new neighbors, which I'd be very happy about. You've also, if I'm not mistaken, you've also brought back Jews who were forcibly assimilated under communist rule, crypto Jews who were forced to hide their Jewish identity during the Iberian Inquisition in the late 1400s. And also, you, if I'm not mistaken, you also discovered some Jews in Poland who didn't even know they were Jewish. Is that correct?
Right. We work with a variety of communities around the world. And in addition to the lost tribes, we work with lost or hidden Jewish communities. We know that the Jewish people endured the worst forms of persecution, more so than any other nation in mankind's history. Expulsion, exile, massacre, forced conversions, etc. So down through the centuries, countless people were ripped away from us. They were kidnapped from us, taken from us against their will. And yet in many cases, they managed to pass down from one generation to the next, even covertly, that sense of Jewish ancestry or Jewish connection. And incredibly enough, we are seeing throughout the world nowadays a growing number of people who are stepping forward and looking to reconnect with their Jewish roots. And that ranges from young Poles whose grandparents or great-grandparents were Polish Jews who survived the Holocaust and then chose to hide their identity because of what they endured under Nazism and then communism. Then there are the Bnei Anusim, or the crypto Jews, the descendants of Spanish and Portuguese Jewry, who were forcibly converted in the 14th and 15th centuries, but who nonetheless continued to practice Judaism in secret down through the generations, despite being hunted down by the Inquisition. And there are many other similar communities. Each one is unique in its own right, but what unites them is that there's something happening out there in the world. More and more of these people are looking to come back home.
Does the state of Israel recognize them under the law of return as Jews to return to Israel?
So
or do they have to go through the conversion first?
The law of return goes back 2 generations. Anyone with a Jewish grandparent, even if the person is not Jewish, if they have a Jewish grandparent, they have the right to make Aliyah. It's been said that this is based on the Nuremberg laws of the Nazis. In other words, anyone that Hitler and his accomplices would have murdered for being even a half Jew or a quarter Jew is someone that the state of Israel will give refuge to. Most of the communities we work with, their Jewish connection goes back beyond 2 generations, and it's often difficult for them to prove. So in many cases, they do have to go through some kind of a formal return or conversion ceremony in order to obtain the right to immigrate to Israel.
We have a question from Facebook. Stephen's asking, any thoughts about the Jewish status of Christopher Columbus?
Well, the late great Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal wrote a book back in the 1960s called Sails of Hope. And the book was an explanation of the theory that Christopher Columbus himself was one of these hidden Jews. And that in effect, because he left Spain on his voyages around the time of the expulsion of the Jews from Spain in 1492. So one of the theories is that he was seeking out a new world, a new place for the hidden Jews to go to escape the Inquisition and perhaps even return to the Jewish people. Now, most mainstream historians do not accept the claims or the assertions about Columbus being a Jew. In fact, they don't even necessarily agree as to whether Columbus was Spanish or Italian or some combination of the two. But there is a lot of interesting evidence to suggest that perhaps he was in fact a Jew.
If I can add, I've been writing about this stuff for a while, and every time I write an article about crypto Jews or about Shavei Israel and the work you do, I always get these amazing responses. People like, "Oh, I'm not Jewish, but I've always had an attraction for Israel. My grandmother was Jewish," or we have this tradition in my family. There's this connection to Israel that it doesn't die, and personal identity is a very complex thing. And it amazes me how there seems to be an awakening today when I see non-Jews who love Israel for no clear reason. It's totally inexplicable, and they love Israel. I've discovered some amazing connections. Dear friends, they love Israel. And then he tells me, there's a friend. He said, "Yeah, when I was 12 years old, my abuela, my grandmother, took me to the barn and said, remember that we celebrate the Sabbath. We observe the Sabbath on the wrong day." Another man who Native American Indian, and then he shows me a picture of a book from his grandfather's library. That's a Jewish holy book. There's endless stories, and I'm sure you have so many more stories than me of how this spark this love of Zion is really it lasts. So it's you can't extinguish it, and I've seen it time after time. It's really amazing.
Marita from YouTube is asking, can you talk about the two-stick prophecy and the tribe of Ephraim? Myself and many others are waking up to this scripture, observing Torah, and desiring to return home.
Yes, so as I mentioned previously, the prophet Ezekiel talks about in chapter 36 or 37, God tells him to take the two sticks, the two branches, one representing Judah, the Jewish people, the other representing Joseph or Ephraim, which is symbolic of the 10 lost tribes, and to bring them together in his hands. And then God says he will forge them into one nation, one people. And the traditional Jewish interpretation of that prophecy is that at the end of days, as I said earlier, Judah, as well as all the 10 lost tribes, will come back. They will return, and we will all be reunited as one in Zion.
I also find it amazing. We were talking the miraculous return. We have tools at our disposal that really seem like a miracle. The whole genetic testing, the home genetic testing, people are finding out about their own background in ways that were just never possible before. I want to emphasize that we're talking about identity and not Jewish, the status of being a Jew. That's something that you very nicely taught me once. But personal identity, gosh, don't you want to know more about yourself? Don't you want to know your family history if you were connected to Israel at one point? Oh, there you go. I'm sorry, what did she just say?
That she traced her grandfather's DNA to the Upper Fertile Crescent.
Right. These are things, that you just wouldn't expect. People, I mean, here we have people living in China, living in India, who passed through China. They look Asian, and they are part of Israel. I know a lot of people, like I said, a Native American Indian. His grandfather was Jewish. This ability to investigate our own personal identity is huge, and it's unprecedented. And I'm very excited about it.
And let's not forget the fact that when the Bible speaks about the idea of returning on the wings of eagles, that clearly that could refer to El Al and the airplanes that we have today. It's pretty clear that was what the prophets were seeing. They didn't have the vocabulary to say airplane, so they used the description that they could use, which was on the wings of eagles.
Which, the gematria of 747.
I think there's another biblical aspect to all of this, which is the excitement, the enthusiasm that the return to Zion generates among many Christians. We've come to sort of take it for granted, but 50 or 100 years ago, if someone had said that Christians would be praying for Aliyah, would be supporting Aliyah, they would have been taken away to a rubber room. But it's becoming so routine. And this too, I think, I always try to mention Isaiah 49, verse 22, where God says that the nations of the world are going to carry our sons and daughters back to the land at the end of days. It's a very powerful visual image that the prophet uses. The verse could have just said, the nations of the world are going to help the Jews go home. It doesn't say that. They're going to carry us. When you carry something, you are actively involved. You are hands-on. When you carry something, you elevate it and you take it to its proper destination. And so I think that is a biblical mandate for the nations of the world, for non-Jews everywhere, to become involved actively in facilitating the return to Zion. You can carry us with your prayers, your encouragement. You can carry us with your financial support, however you choose to do so. But in doing so, you are partnering with God and the Jewish people in the fulfillment of the divine plan.
And those looking for more information about your organization, we're just putting up now the URL that you can go to, shavei.org, SHAVEI.org. And there you can find all the information about the Rabbi Freund's organization and what it does. And I'm sure there's a place that people can contribute there as well.
Yes.
And also just reading the stories of the people that have come back to Israel after generations, it's astounding. And as we said at the beginning, and as Rabbi Freund just pointed out, this is really an active manifestation of prophecy that we can take part in today. We can actually do it. We can become a part of the physical manifestation of these prophecies, and prophecies that are all over the Bible. I'm astounded. I think we're gonna call it here. It's we could go on and on. I wish we could sit around and just hear the stories about the individuals, because that always fascinates me. This was Rabbi Michael Freund from Shavei Israel. He's bringing the tribe of Menashe and several other tribes back to Israel on a daily basis. That's what he does every day. It's amazing. I'd like to thank you, Rabbi Freund, for being here, and also for what you're doing. I'm really, if I didn't have to talk, I'd be crying. I think it's awesome. Thank you so much. You all be blessed. Come back and visit us. Visit us here in Israel.
Thanks.
Thank you.